Hey guys, welcome back to the Lit Mag Lab podcast. I'm Jazz Marie, aka Vellichor. So, previously on the podcast, I was just sharing the release of my guidebook. Yeah, so again, it just encompasses some of the things I mentioned on this podcast just in one place, right? So, do listen back to that if you're interested. And prior to that, there was an episode on Paloma magazine, which was based on Substack. Again, just want to reiterate that not all lit mags and journals have, a website based off of, WordPress or Squarespace or, Webflow or Framer or Wix or all of the other web builders out there, right? Some lit mags and journals out there, they are maybe using Substack or different platforms like that, right, to sustain because sometimes communications, newsletters, or publications, right, in terms of poetry, fiction, and visual art. So the benefits of doing that is that, you can save a lot of money, right? By using some low cost alternatives, right? Because website platforms, they have monthly bills for the premium features to get rid of those, ads, even to get your own custom domain, right? There's domain fees, all of that, right? So today we are going to check out Vellichor Literary. And yeah, again, it's a literary magazine, and I believe they're based out of San Francisco, California. So for those of you who are listening to this episode for the first time, again, you can listen and watch the video recordings and my screen, what I'm sharing out on YouTube, Spotify, and elsewhere. So yeah, I believe they were also awarded on the list Best Lit Mag of 2025. They were on the list of Beautiful Design Best Lit Mags of 2025. So I just thought I'd take a look and check it out. It sounded pretty interesting. Even if you hop over to their social media feed, right? It looks like they've grown substantially, right? And they started in April of 2024. So, yeah, and this is their feed. So you can see they share issue releases and all contributors listed out. They also have some other events and remote volunteer opportunities for teens. So that's really cool. And 99,000 followers we're seeing there on Instagram. So a large following of Vellichor. So I just wanted to check it out, and yeah, so it's saying no fee, which is great, and it says accept simultaneous submissions. I'm on the Chill Subs overview page again. Publishes reprints, yes. Response time, others are reporting an average of 25 days. The acceptance rate looks like it's been averaging 30.43% for those who had submitted, and or at least tracked through Chill Subs their decision again. Editor reported data is 5% though, and yeah. So they are on a couple different platforms, right? So we have Discord, Instagram, Substack, YouTube, right? So they're using multiple channels. And yeah, so Vellichor Literary is an independent magazine based in San Francisco, California, committed to extracting the bitter and the sweet of modern life. They publish art, literature, and film from across the globe. They publish the coarse and tender, gritty and soft, and seek raw, enduring, and deeply personal work. Stay for coffee? So yeah. So I think here, right, they are on the fish list, right? And yeah, that's 1,796 out of 1,830. Those rankings change, over time. So yeah. Yeah, and if you're not sure what the fish list is, there is an episode again on this podcast pertaining to it. Masthead, so the founding editor in chief is Ben Ramakrishnan, and I apologize if I mispronounce any names. So yeah, and something you guys should be aware of in regards to Ben, I believe that Ben started Vellichor just at age 15. So that's awesome. And I think it goes to show you can start at any age, your lit mag or journal, right? You don't have to be 18 or, 30 or 40 to start a literary arts magazine or even a publication series of any kind. And if I read about editors from time to time, or if I can't find information maybe on a site of any kind or elsewhere or bio on them, I typically will just do a search. And there are videos of Ben under the Vellichor, Instagram channel too, if you look in the Reels section, and different Reels that Ben's done. So yeah. If you also do a Google search, you can, see that Ben has been featured in a couple different articles and interviews. So that's really cool. I'm not going to read those for you. Sometimes I've quoted off portions of it, but you can see on my screen, right? It states, right, founded at 15 years old, right? Vellichor Literary Magazine, right? Vellichor Lit Magazine. And yeah, and it says it's amassed a huge following. So yeah, I thought it sounded really cool. So I wanted to check it out and just see the setup of Vellichor, right? And also, I believe Vellichor Literary Magazine is using Dapple, Dapple Submission Manager too, which is a fairly new submission management system that I covered on this podcast in a couple episodes just talking about it. And there is a Q&A with the CEO and co-founder of it, right? So yeah, but we'll get to Dapple in a little bit here. So yeah, totally. You can read those if you're interested. So I think that that's really cool. Starting at a very young age, founding a literary magazine, it's a lot to take on. I think that's really awesome. So yeah, let's head over to some other things here. So again, they have received votes, right? Beautiful design. I just love them. Actually inclusive, new writer friendly, a damn good read, great editors, hidden gem, bold and weird, career builder. So they've had a lot of positive, it looks like, votes and reviews thus far. In terms of calls, there's a couple different ones here. I'm just going to list them off for you guys. Blog, always open, no fee. Hybrid, no fee. And yeah, fiction general issue 3. So this isn't the, I don't know what issue number they're on per se, but I think, yeah, this says it was updated December 30th 2025. So yeah, it looks like they have different issue calls, right? And I have a call called Ariadne's Thread. It's a monthly poetry and prose contest. And yeah, so each month a new prompt in the form of a song lyric that pertains to the month will drop, and a number of submissions will be selected as the winners of for the month. And yeah, too many issues will be published from this contest. One for January, June, one for January to June, and one for July to December. So too many issues are published from this contest. One for January to June, and one for July to December. And then they also have Espresso Shots is a short film series that periodically opens submissions for broad themes. The theme was most recently, it looks like toxicity. And then they have other issue calls here. Yeah, so I think this was possibly an older issue call, not removed. So they have issue 6 here, actually, right? And it's a themed issue, right? Multimedia art. Yeah, and then a contest for change, Sahar E. Adab, and a contest for change, and a poetry, essay, and art contest raising funds for underground education for girls and women in Afghanistan. And that one looks like it had a fee on it, $5. So, yeah, I don't know if there are any details on this. So, yeah, and it's stating here the medium of everything. So, digital, right? So, I'm assuming digital issues and digital publications. And yeah, so this is just submission track stats, right? Those who tracked in chill subs. So we can see about 90 have tracked so far through chill subs, accepted 22, rejected 48, pending 14, withdrawn 3, didn't respond 4. Yeah, so that is their stats, and I think that's pretty much it. And yeah, their vibe is showing get 'em while they're hot off the press. And yeah, so they're on a couple other lists, right? New lit mags blowing up right now, and where the cool kids are submitting their writing part 1, right? So yeah, let's head over now. If we click over to their website, it's not per se a website; it's more so a link tree. So when you pull up their website link, or you click on that button on Chill Subs, what happens, it pulls up their link tree. And yeah, some lit magazine journals I've seen, they do this. They put everything under a link tree, like how to submit to them, their calls, their Substack, any issues they've released. So yeah, I think, Linktree and other ones out there, they do have the ability to attach a custom domain to them, of some kind, I believe, to point it to a domain. But for the most part, a lot of lit magazine journals use, Linktree. And there's other ones out there, right? Bio sites and a few others. There was one that was discontinued that I really miss in terms of, alternatives to Linktree. But I think some have opposed Linktree in the sense that they state if you have a website, right, it's per se maybe driving traffic away from your web page, right, and things like that. And what some do, they create a landing page like this through their website as well. However, right, this is a low cost way to facilitate everything and centralize it, right? I've seen a lot of publications use Linktree though, so it is good for organizational purposes, right? And displaying everything centrally, right? We have plugins for social media channels here, email, YouTube, Blue Sky, Substack, Discord, right? And all open submission calls. So why don't we just click on this? I think they just had a call close out actually. So it's not by any means all of their calls or anything like that. Yeah. So yeah, let's head over there and check this out. So you can see here, right? This is Dapple. It says powered by Dapple at the bottom here. You can see. And they have a guest blog submissions call right now. So let's see what this looks like when we're signed into the Dapple submission portal that Vellichor has. So yeah, here we have the submit to the Vellichor literary blog here. The blog has no theme, meaning pieces submitted can be on any topic at all. For the blog, they only accept journalism, creative nonfiction, essays, personal reflections, memoirs, research papers, art of any medium, including photography. That means no poetry, no fiction for this call. So yeah, they do have other calls for that, of course, right? I've seen on their channels, so and issues elsewhere. So yeah, this is just like their blog call. I think a call, another one just closed out today, actually, as I was checking out. So yeah, submissions to the blog are rolling, meaning they're open all the time, no deadline. And, it says feel free to submit whenever you'd like and keep submitting future. You can submit as many times as you like. So, yeah, they have no cap on how many times you can submit. I think that can be sometimes problematic for volume, if you don't set a cap or amount of times, others like a wait time. But, yeah, I think in terms of like acceptances, like, from writers who, want to submit multiple times, I think sometimes, if you want, not the same contributors in each issue, it can be beneficial to say, wait, X amount of months if you've already had work accepted through us, right? Or something like that. But yeah, this is not for their issue calls or anything like that. It's just for their blog. So yeah, I'm not sure what the guidelines are on their other calls or anything like that because they don't have a website or on Substack anywhere that I could find the guidelines for their other calls. So it's just based off of, I'm looking at just their blog call. And yeah, neither acceptance or rejection emails will be sent for the blog. So they don't send acceptance or rejection emails for the blog, right? So yeah, if your piece is accepted, will be published on the blog within a month of submitting. And yeah, I think it is a nice to send decision letters out to everyone. I think it kind of leaves others in limbo a little bit when there are no decision letters sent back to them. And yeah, but that's just me. But I think if it's a blog, it's not issues. I think for issue calls and things of that nature, contests, absolutely you do need, it is a good idea to send rejection letters and decision letters out to everyone, right? Submission guidelines, right? So you can put your pen name, or your name in there, Instagram handle, title of your piece, mediums, right? How did you hear about them, attachment, and then you just, you can save the draft or submit it, and that's basically it. So there's these collapsible, things here, right? Submission guidelines, and yeah, all of that, right? And the terms and conditions, right? Contact details, and yeah. So yeah, the submission guidelines, right above, right there, and terms and conditions. I don't think anything is populated under terms and conditions when I was expanding it. But yeah, maybe they didn't enter anything in there. But yeah, some lit magazine journals do have some, terms and conditions, tied to, payment or things of that nature or a privacy policy on their website, But yeah, I don't know if they'll ever fill that out with anything like that. I don't believe, not that I can tell, I don't think there's, for this call anyway, there's no payment. And I don't believe I couldn't find anywhere that they pay writers for work or anything like that. However, yeah, this is Dapple. So I'm just curious, I wanted to check out a lit mag journal using Dapple and just to see the setup of it. So this is one of their calls. They had another call. And yeah, you can plug in submission guidelines, in submission management systems like Dapple. Another one, right, Subfolio. I like Subfolio. And yeah, Dapple has a lot of great features too. Even Ola just recently came out last year as well. So a lot of alternatives to, submittable, right? And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think this actually, it says please read the submission guidelines before submitting your work. It says see the above for information. I don't know if this could be, um, put up here actually, welcome submission guidelines versus another toggle to expand, and then terms and conditions, right? So That's the only thing here, because I think if someone would click into that, they'd be like, oh, it's just up there. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, it's organized. Submission management systems really help, when you have a high volume submissions and to maintain everything. So yeah. So I think that's pretty much it for Dapple. They don't have any other calls open at the moment, but there was one I had seen earlier this morning, on January 1st or on New Year's, right? So yeah, they have a community Discord server, buy coffee, right? Support Vellichor, and yeah. So they have Ariadne's thread, December edition, Poetry and Prose. Let's check this out. I don't know what it's about, and let's just see what this is about. Yeah. I don't think it's open at this very moment for submissions. It closed on January 1st, 2026. Yeah. So it just closed out, not accepting submissions. And yeah, so that's what happens when you click on a call or linked one that has just closed out, right? And yeah, the blog and nonfiction visual art call, we just covered that earlier, right? That's the open blog call that they have. And yeah, you can see they have all the issues laid out here, right? Now, something that Vellichor does that, I've seen some other lit magazine journals do this. They leverage Ko-fi, right? Ko-fi, not the buy me a coffee, okay? Those are very confusing. You can mix them up, right? Totally. Whenever it says buy us a coffee, I'm like, are you talking about buy me a coffee or Ko-fi, right? Or, I think it's pronounced Ko-fi, right? It rhymes. I think they said with no fee, Ko-fi, right? So, or, has that pairing with it when you say it, right? And yeah, so let's check on an issue. Let's check on this issue, Kaimana, right? Issue 6. I'm just curious what this looks like. So yeah, this is their Ko-fi page, right? So yeah, this was their 6th magazine issue. So you see what they're doing here, right? They have a setup with the issue, and it's part of the Ko-fi shop. So you can create your own store, right, with the issues in it. Now, what's really great, I think you can, pay what you want, right? That sort of model of pay what you want. A lot of lit magazine journals do that. There are a couple other platforms where you can facilitate pay what you want, type of setups. Not a ton out there, but quite a few. So you can see here on my screen, right? It says, how much would you like to pay? So you can input 0 or more. So it is free to access these issues. You could type in 0, get it now, and then it'll send you a link out to the order or PDF file possibly, or even you could facilitate, physical, issues through Ko-fi, right? A store of some kind. And yeah, and then, list like shipping and things like that. These are digital issues. So it has digi version right there, issue 6. And yeah, so you could input $0, get it now. You can see that it also has the total number sold, right? 446 sold. If we go to their view shop, we'll come back to this. So you can see they have 108 supporters. And then there's a search here for Vellichor's literary shop, right? And yeah, so you can see free is here, free. And you can see the number sold, 438, 575, right? Issue 4 was 1,600 sold. And yeah, so you can visibly see how many are, not necessarily purchasing for a fee, no requirement or anything like that, right? These are set at a minimum of $0, right? And then it's optional for others to input an amount. So yeah, I would say for some lit magazine journals, it may be tough to facilitate something where it's like you can input $0, you don't have a required minimum. If they don't have other things to offset costs, maybe of the submission management system bill, or even website maintenance fees, other operational costs, right? Not all lit magazine journals can do that because there's yearly expenses, right? So you have to do other things to cover costs and expenses, or even if a publication is paying writers for their work, right? Yeah, and I've covered some of those ways, right? Even in the guide, I mentioned, to facilitate that, maybe to work towards paying writers their work, or other things to help offset costs, right? We mentioned workshops on the series, some other things, feedback, sessions like Gather Lit Mag does, and some cool events, right? And yeah. Yeah, so I think this is cool. There are other lit mags in journals out there that leverage Ko-fi, right? Vellichor is not the only one. If you actually do a search for, lit mag Ko-fi, right? Ko-fi, you'll come across many other ones that are using Ko-fi or have in the past. Now, not all of them are active lit mags in journals out there, but I was just doing a search because I was curious. So there was in the past, not all of them, are active. Some of the lit magazine journals are defunct that I came across on their Ko-fi page. They just never deactivated it, or, or have been not in use for quite some time. So I'm not sure on the statuses of these lit mags and journals, but I did a search for lit mag Kofi, and I came up with, by Full House lit mag, partially shy lit mag, overly lit, in bloom literary, porch literary magazine, power cut literary magazine, tint journal, the Odyssey youth literary magazine. I think they're still active. The Odyssey youth literary magazine. Um, and several other ones, the Expressionist Literary Magazine and Delphinium Literary Magazine, right? And this one was established, it looks like in January 2025. And you can see there, right? Ivy Literary. And yeah, not all of the ones I just mentioned are active, but a lot of lit magazine journals actually have created, Ko-fi shops, right? And it's pretty cool what you can do with Ko-fi. I think even a lot of YouTubers, right? A lot of other content creators heavily leverage Ko-fi, and maybe even, some of the other platforms that are competitors of it, right? That you're aware of. So, yeah, I think this is a nice setup. It's organized. You can get the issues digitally. Now, what happens, when you, let's say, insert $0, right? Or, get an issue. So, I'll show you. So, you get an email, right? And then it will, say, get your order. It takes you out to a Flip HTML5 flip reader, right? So, you can flip through the issues digitally and read them. Now on the Lit Mag Lab podcast, I've covered several, PDF flipbook readers that you could maybe leverage. Flip HTML5 is not the only one. You can listen back. I think it was episode 33 or in the 30s, right? Early 30s of the series, where I was showing you a couple different ones. And in the description, I plugged in even some more ones I'd come across a bit after that episode too. So yeah, this is a great way to have some fun with issues, make them interactive a little bit, to flip through it. I think it's way better than a static PDF, right? And I'm not going to flip through the entire issue for you guys, obviously, but I would just open a page, so there's a letter from the founder, right? And it has, all the everyone involved, right? The everyone involved in the issue, the team and their names. And yeah, so they have a lot, in their issues, and it is really cool. So yeah, in the issues they have, right, everyone involved, right, on the teams and everyone who made the issues possible. And yeah, and then it goes into the pieces, right? So I'm obviously not going to flip through the whole thing for you guys or anything like that. Just wanted to show you, Flip HTML5 again. And yeah, a lot of other ones exist. There's hazing, there's issue, right? But some of the platforms do have fees to, upload them and things like that, a monthly bill. Not all of them, so do listen to that episode 33. Check the description of that episode. I plugged in a couple different links to those if you're interested. Yeah, but embeddable PDFs even are used quite a bit on Lit Magazine Journal's websites to give previews of issues. So yeah, I think this is a nice layout for sure. And yeah, so let's go back to their shop here, right? So with Ko-fi, right, you can of course, donate, you can tip, right? And yeah, you can do a lot. You can even set a recommended minimum or things like that. And yeah, you can see supporters, a leaderboard, and the shop, right? So I think it's cool. You can see, how many, issue sales there are. So yeah, again, it's not like Vellichor is stating you have to cough up $10, $15 for an issue, anything like that. They're like, it's a pay what you want. If you want to, contribute something, you can, but the issues are free, right? And sometimes lit magazine journals change things over time, but this is how they have it structured as of currently. And yeah, I think it's great, free access to issues. I hate paywalls and things like that. I think pay what you want systems are very flexible and friendly for others, totally. You can see at the top there's also a tip, right, button. And some submission management systems, like Dapple, Folio even, and a few other ones out there, they have, tip options too built into them. But I think it's cool. A lot of lit magazine journals do use Ko-fi, Buy Me a Coffee even, several other ones out there. There are, merch stores I covered in my guidebook. Also on some places, podcasts I've mentioned, various shops that have printing, right, capabilities in the sense that you can print merch, items, t-shirts, even buttons, coffee mugs, all kinds of fun stuff too. And with those, some of those shops you can also have, right, donations facilitated as well. And yeah, so I think it's a cool setup. I think it's nice for others to be able to, if someone's interested in submitting, and they want to check out an issue, right? They don't have to pay anything, right? They can just look at it, right? And get an issue and see what it's about. And then, yeah, see if it's a fit for the work they want to submit, or are interested in submitting. Yeah. So again, I was just peeking into a couple different Litmax Ko-fi pages. I'm going to trip up on coffee and Kofi the whole episode, guys. But yeah, Ko-fi pages, or yeah. So these are again some different ones I came across. The Odyssey Youth Literary Magazine again, right? And they have a shop. They also have a website too, but not all of these pages maybe are active. And yeah, another page I came across was Partially Shy Lit Mag. Now, what they have here is expedited submissions set up, beta reading, editing, right? Other services, right? With fees here. I know some people find, fast passes, skip the lines, unethical, things like that. But a lot of lit magazine journals do offer paid feedback or additional services. So I think, Kofi has a lot of different use cases for it. It can be applied to different things. Maybe, you want to do for a lit magazine journal, maybe offer feedback, and that money from feedback, requests can be used to maybe start paying writers for their work, or even applied to future publication projects or covering expenses, right? You have to get a little bit creative with ways to offset costs, right? Especially, if a place, I don't know what Partially Shy Lit Mag's, setup is, but let's say, you're offering issues all for free, right? Or making them pay what you want models, right? At zero's a minimum, right? I think if you ever, have expenses or a lot of cost, or you start doing print even, or paying writers their work, yeah, you need to have some other things going on, right? And maybe it's Kofi, maybe it's Patreon. I showed you some examples of various Patreon setups, right? Seaside Gothics episode, they have some publications paywall and subscription options, right? And then they offer a number of free publications to read too, like a mix. So a lot of different setups you can do. I just wanted to cover Kofi today because I thought, yeah, it is something quite a few lit magazine journals still use today, right? Quite heavily. And yeah, so yeah, and then another one was the Pink Hydra I came across, right? And they also have a shop, right? And you can see here Pink Hydra has minimum sets. So these have required amounts in it, right? And yeah, so that's Partially Shy. So yeah. And then you can see here Pink Hydra, right? So they do have a required minimum amount, for example, on issues, right? We have $10 here, 370. So a little bit different structure. There is a free one, volume 2 though. So yeah, you could facilitate something like this with your own late married journal. Yeah. Kofi has a lot of, again, different use cases, and yeah. So just wanted to show you some examples of different Kofi shops, right? And setups, so yeah. Again, with Partially Shy, a lot of lit magazine journals do this with their submission management system. So if you don't, have one, right, this could be an alternative to maybe doing things like that, like feedback requests and things of that nature. Totally. If my lit mag journal, back when we had, Dippy Lit Mag's earliest years, right, second time or more submissions were not free. So we did have a small fee for, those who wanted to submit a second time back then. We no longer have fees at Dippity Lit Mag, but that was a structure we had. And for a while, very briefly, I did have a Kofi page for us, right? And I just recently did, create one again, but haven't really done anything much with it. I haven't done a shop ever with it or anything of that nature. Even with Patreon, I haven't really dived into that long term. But Patreon and Kofi, even Buy Me a Coffee, they can be great ways to, generate additional funds, maybe for projects to cover things here and there, right? And yeah, so that's all I wanted to share there. So yeah, they have all their issues linked here, right? Now, I think this could be kind of tough when you get into higher number of issues, right? Let's say you have 50, 60 issues, right? I think with the link tree, it can be kind of tough with that. But of course, they do have, right, their Ko-fi shop, so it's searchable and everything. But I think, there are pros and cons, right, to using just a link tree or Substack. You want to, again, not overwhelm others with links, right? You want to take them to like central places. Like, I think Vellichor has, you want to take them, centrally to places, right? It's hard when you put multiple links in front of others, right? but everything's organized, right? You can find everything on their link tree. It's not like it's in 60 different places or anything like that. So something I want to discuss here is the blog and newsletter, right? So they are using Substack for that. Now, Vellichor at some point in time was on Medium, but I believe I came across a post stating they moved from Medium to Substack. And yeah, I've seen quite a few lit mags do that, or I've seen some even non-literary magazines, right? Just like publication series or blogsters or writers even use both Medium and Substack, right? So, no one's saying you can't use like Substack, Medium, and even Beehive or any other platform, collectively. But I think you should stick to just like, for a publication series, right? You shouldn't, it can be tough to juggle multiple places, right? So, Substack is great, right? Again, I discussed in that episode, I think it was 103, Paloma Magazine, right? The benefits of Substack, some of the capabilities, just covering it with guys. And this is what I was mentioning earlier, right? Substack, back in that Paloma episode, right? This archive can be hidden, right? Even the notes section. Every Lit Mag journal has a different, setup with their Substack, and you can do some cool things, right? With, let's say, featuring visual art or, on the tiles, right? They're the chips, as Substack calls them. And yeah, so, and they have a recommendation section and things like that, right? So, let's just click into one of these on the blog, right? I'm just curious, right? Um, let's click on Ode to Obsolete. So this is a guest artist. It looks like December 10th, 2025. So yeah, they just have the piece like visually there. And it's unclear to me if Vellichor Literary, nominates for awards or Best of the Net or anything like that. They are digitally based. It looks like I don't know if they'll ever do print issues or anything of that nature. But yeah, some other things I would just mention, when I was reading the about, right, I think it is nice for lit magazine journals, if they don't have a website or they do have a Substack, right, like Paloma Magazine did, and a few other, lit mags I've mentioned on this podcast that are based on Substack and in the series, right? So I think it's a good idea to have information about the masthead here, or the staff, and submission guidelines, right, that others can refer to for future calls. That would be my only comment. I think it is beneficial to see that right in advance. Others like, oh, so these are what their typical calls are. This is the typical amount, and for maybe a contest or a change from time to time, right? Guidelines, different contests, but for like regular calls that are open, their blog call, some of the other ones, Ariadne call, right? Some of those things like the guidelines of it, the masthead, and yeah, just a few more things here. But I don't know how recent they moved over to Substack here. But yeah, I'm sure maybe they'll add that maybe one day here and build it out a little bit further. So yeah, yeah, and in the about section, I think that would help others maybe, since we don't really see any of the other guidelines or typical calls, out there. I'm sure on their social media they post a thing. They've even done some cool interviews. It looks like, and various different types of, features even too. So yeah, very cool. They do use Discord. Discord's great for community connection, chatting with others, right? And so yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So when I saw buy us a coffee, I was like, is it buy me a coffee or is it Kofi, right? Because I was like, I don't know. I'm not gonna say which one's better than the other. I would say, yeah, I tried buy me a coffee for a while, then I actually pivoted back over to Kofi, right? So yeah, it can be beneficial to set up a Kofi page for your lit manga journal, especially if you're just starting out and maybe don't want to invest in, a submission management system quite yet or anything like that. Maybe you just have a Substack and a Kofi page, right? That's possible, right? Yeah. In this case, Vellichor, Litmag does have a DAPL submission management system, right? And I don't know, some lit magazine journals, over time, not all, some decide to change their submission management system, or I've seen some just stick to email, to reduce cost, or also, change up their submission process. But yeah, I think whenever you select a submission management system or, something like that, typically it's a good idea to stick with it long term, right? Because it builds out an archive, right? You can refer to submissions maybe for putting things in print one day or anything like that. But it's not absolutely necessary, right? Vellichor, you can see here, right? They're solely digital, it looks like, and they've grown substantially. They also have a Substack now, and I think it has over 1,000 subscribers, and they have 99,000, almost 100,000 followers on Instagram. I'm not a numbers person, but I think that's still a huge accomplishment to generate traction around a series, right? And you can see right back in their shop, and you can see back in their shop again, right? That they have sold several hundred issues for their releases, right? That's cool, right? So, and yeah, issue 6, by the way, was 102 pages. I haven't looked at the other issues, so I don't know if they're different lengths, their issues or anything like that. But of course you could totally look into that if you're curious. But I think it is a good idea to be consistent with the sections, right, and layout, and most lit magazine journals do that, right? They have dedicated sections they do consistently across issues, and maybe some spin-off series, some fun things. I think they have like some fun contest calls, Ariadne's thread, and even some others that give back to others, right? I saw that. And they also have anthologies as well. Now, this anthology, Demeter's Garden anthology, that one was actually on hazing. So they have used hazing in the past, or I think for this. Yeah, hazing and Flip HTML5. There are a lot of different, again, PDF flip readers you could, leverage. So yeah, it's very cool. Again, you get that flip book experience, right? With it, not just a very clunky PDF that you scroll through, right? So this looks like it's saying, I think, 100 and something, 197 pages, right? So yeah, it looks like they've done collaborations, right, between Vellichor Literary, the Chartium Jardin Zine, and Luxury Literary Magazine. So yeah, you may recall from like Moss Puppy Magazine's episode, right? There was collaborations, for certain print, releases, and I can't remember if it was an anthology or not. But yeah, if you want to team up with other publications, you want to do a collective thing, in the community with multiple lit magazine journals, and if someone says no, don't take it personally or anything like that. But when you reach out about collaborations or doing something like this, yeah, it can be fun. It can be really cool and awesome to do collaborations between other lit mags and journals. I've seen, lit mags and journals join forces in the community, and it can be really cool. The issues or anthologies results from that, some fun contests and things of that nature. So, yeah. So this one was an anthology. Yeah. So I haven't clicked through all of their issues, but, it looks like the issues are themed, right? And they had mini issues, right? Winter Whispers, and yeah, some cool names for sure. And yeah, so this is again their link tree. So yeah, whether you want to get a link tree or not, that's totally up to you. I think it is a good idea, regardless if you have a link tree or not, right? To have, let's say you have a website, right? You want to make sure your landing page is very clean, and everyone can access everything fine. The submit button, right, in a matter of seconds, right? Or view all submission calls. They have it at the top there. So yeah, it's not absolutely necessary to have a website or to get your own, custom domain, on their domain fees, registration fees, right, and things like that, website bills. So of course you could always do that, with Substack. There's ability to, to attach a custom domain to it, right, to get rid of that appendage.substack.com. But for the most part, I've seen a lot of literary magazines just leave it as .substack.com. It's not a huge deal, but yeah, it's more of a preference. If you think it looks cleaner without the appendage and links, I think if you stop paying, right, your domain fees or renewing it, right, then those links others have, right, contributors, right, they'll probably be inaccessible, right, if you stop paying for that domain and that registration renewal fees, or yeah. So yeah, a lot of different things you can do. So I just wanted to show you an example of a slightly different setup, right, with Linktree, a Substack, and also a Ko-fi shop, right? So, consider that, maybe if you're thinking starting your own Litman journal, yeah, Ko-fi can be leveraged in this manner, right, to give others access to issues, to facilitate, a $0 minimum or pay what you want model of some kind. And yeah, if not, if you don't want to do pay what you want, yeah, that's up to you. You could set required minimums and have some freebies, right? A freebie issue or two, right? So a lot of different ways you can go about it. They are using Dapple Submission Manager. I think it is better than just using email, right? And again, you can listen back to episode, I think it was 50 something, 52 and 95 on Dapple. Some things changed with Dapple. So if you're curious or interested in, leveraging Dapple for your submission management system or looking into that, right? There is a CLMP membership discount, and there's also that interview on the Lit Mag Lab with Oz, right, the CEO and co-founder of it. So you can read it on the Lit Mag Lab if you're interested. But the Smishman system we're on right now, my own Lit Mag, right, Dippity, we're on Subfolio, and I really like it too. A lot of great options out there. So look into Dapple, Ola, Subfolio, several other ones I mentioned in this podcast. Some Lit magazine journals are using Moksha and other ones, but I think Moksha is a little bit pricier, right, as I stated. But yeah. Duotrope, right, is another, listing database, right? But they have their submission management system, Duosuma. So again, Duosuma, Subfolio, Dapple, and Subfolio, Dapple, Duosuma, right? Those submission management systems, and also Submittable, right? They have CLMP membership discounts. So yeah, I talked about that on the podcast a little bit. Have some articles around that. So if you're interested, do check those out on my Substack and elsewhere. But yeah, I just wanted to show Vellichor because I thought it was cool. They've even done some things, I think, on their social media feed, like contest calls for like logo design, and things of that nature. So, if you're a late night journal starting out, right, yeah, you could, facilitate a contest call for, help with your logo design or a fresh new look and things of that nature, right? And I think it is fun to have others involved in like the cover art and, to give it a very, authentic human feel to it, right? I don't like, right, AI artwork or things like that on covers. I don't like AI covers and stuff like that, right? So yeah, I like, human made illustration work. So I think that's cool. They have different covers here, right? And different themed issues, right? And yeah, and the themes are the names are cool, right? They have ephemerality, Samsara, Ivresi, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, Lacrimosa, Sakura, right? Yeah, and issue 6, Kaimana, right? And Adrian's Thread, right? So you could do, different anthology series alongside a digital or print issue series, right? If you want to do strictly digital issues, nothing but, flip books, yeah, you could do something like this. It's totally possible. Whatever you do, again, just be consistent with it, right? And some lit magazine journals over time, yeah, some of them do print anthologies or put things in print, but it's really up to you if you want to do that. When you start diving into print or even getting your own website or domain, there can be more costs right there. You want to keep things as low cost as possible, right, when you're starting out. And if you were wondering what Vellichor means, I was looking this up because I couldn't remember it off the top of my head. But, on Wikipedia, I'm just going to quote this off for you guys, right? So, noun, right? It's under neologism, the pensive nostalgia and temporality of used bookstores, the feeling evoked by the scent of old books or paper. Yeah, I would say I like the smell of like bookstores typically. Does that sound weird, guys? Or bookshops, half price bookstore. There always was a distinct smell of the bookshops I would visit in my hometown, and city, right, in Minnesota. And even anywhere you go, right, you never forget that distinct bookshop smell or vibe, right? It's just like very distinct. And hopefully it smells good, okay? Right? Most bookshops, right, that smell of old paper and like all the books collectively together. I think that's interesting, right? And yeah, nostalgia, right? I like that. So yeah, that seems to be what Vellichor is pertaining to. It rhymes with Petrichor, right? And yeah, it looks like it has some other things tied to it here. I'm not going to read all of that off, but it says coin by American author and neologist John Koenig in 2013, created the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows as a blend of vellum, parchment, and ichor. Compare petrichor, it says. Yeah. So I like learning name origins and roots of words and things like that. So I'm just curious. But anyways, yeah, that's just me looking up things. Oh yeah. So one last thing. So Vellichor, right? A literary, right? You may recall I mentioned, right? It says film across the globe, right? So they publish film, not just literature, art, but they do film as well, right? So I went over to their YouTube channel, and this is it. They have 183 subscribers on it. I haven't watched these short films, but I think this is quite fascinating. I haven't seen a lot of lit magazine journals do short films. Yeah, sure, with my lit mag, I've done some visual poetry, things and that nature, different video designs and clips and reels, but this is really cool. They have short films, right? So I haven't watched these, but do check it out if you're interested, their YouTube channel. I think that's pretty neat. I don't see a lot of lit magazine journals doing film publication and things of that nature. So that's pretty cool, and pretty fun, So yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I've covered Vellichor. Again, the one comment I would say is I think it is a good idea though to have, typical guidelines, specified for regular calls, visible somewhere. And maybe, the best place I think for that would probably be, on their Substack or where they post, the blog and newsletter maybe, or somewhere. I don't know if they're going to use their Substack space for anything else. Some publications, they do reshares through their Substack as well from the digital issues or print, right? Or some bonus interviews on Substack. So yeah, I I don't know if they'll do that, but yeah, I think it's a good idea to have more in the about section here. Maybe tie the guidelines and the masthead and a little bit more, Yeah. Sure, it's in the issues, right? All of that, but I think it is good to be in more than one place so others can refer to it. Yeah. Yeah, so that's basically it. That's Vellichor, an indie literary magazine for brewing creatives. And yeah, they had, again, like calls and recently, I think, or in the past, right? For remote volunteers, teens, and, so I don't know how large their staff is or everyone on their masthead or anything like that, but I think Ben's done a really good job, and starting at 15, that's awesome, and founding a lit mag and growing it to, this amount, right, of those involved in the publication, I think is really impressive and cool. So yeah, they were on the list of best lit mags of 2025. They got a lot of votes, so that's cool. One to check out. Predominantly, again, I just wanted to cover an example of a lit mag with a slightly different structure and setup, with different contest calls, Substacked, and they do issue calls, of course, through it looks their submission management system, Dapple, right? And yeah, and then the issues are available, right, to purchase, right, through their Ko-fi shop. So something to think about, whether you want to use Ko-fi or not, that's up to you. You have to really choose a platform you feel comfortable on. Ko-fi is easy to set up and use for sure. Buy Me a Coffee, is a competitor of them, and there are other alternatives out there, right? Tons of different merch stores. I haven't done a specific merch store episode on this podcast, but I mentioned a number in the guidebook I created recently, and sure, I may do some more articles around that. But yeah, I just wanted to share, the Ko-fi shop and the capabilities of it, and just share a different setup of a lit mag or journal out there that just started. It's in its right. It was founded right April 2024, I think, right? So it's a fairly new lit mag, right? Based out of San Francisco, California, and it's grown really quickly. So that's cool, right? And yeah, it's hard to grow, any on any platform, and it takes time, for most. But something I saw, Ben do is do a lot of reels, right? Where Ben is speaking. I haven't watched all of the reels, and doing different reels with the founding editor visible, and I think it's nice, to do reels like that. And yeah, I sure would have loved to do that a little bit more of my lit. So yeah, the algorithm picks up different things. I don't know. I'm not an expert on social media per se myself, but I think it is really nice to see lit magazine journals that have contributors, even on reels and stuff like that, or founding editors, right? Like Ben does, and getting in reels and videos and talking, and yeah, I saw Instagram reels like that. So yeah, really really cool. So yeah, so again, there's no fee to submit to them. It looks like there was that one call that said $5 fee. I think it was to give back to a cause, though, right? So yeah, but for the most part, yeah, there's no fees or anything like that. And the issues, it's optional to put up an amount of money for it, right? You can enter zero and get the issues for free. It looks like as of 2026, right? I almost said 2025, guys. Did you catch that? I was hesitating in my mind there, but yeah, we're in 2026. Wow, can you believe that? And yeah, so that's Vellichor Literary. I just wanted to discuss it a little bit. Again, I think it'd be a good idea, out on their Substack to put a little bit more here in terms of the masthead and the guidelines, maybe even the publication schedule of issues and calls. It's not absolutely necessary to have a designated publication schedule, but it can be beneficial, for others to be aware of, what's ahead, or, things like that. And yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. Again, They don't have any issue calls open at this very moment. They have that blog call, and that's always open. Probably. So yeah, you can follow them on Instagram, social media. They have a Discord channel, a lot of different ways you can connect with Vellichor Literary if you're interested. So yeah, just wanted to show you an example again of a slightly different setup. And yeah, I think it's interesting how they've implemented Bright Kofi in the shops. So yeah, and they do again different anthologies, which is really cool too. So I just wanted to share that setup and structure that Vellichor has. And one more thing, guys, I just wanted to mention this on the Kofi shop, right? So yeah, again, you can facilitate digital issues. I mentioned physical issues. However, keep in mind, if anything in terms of physical items through Kofi, right? I believe you'd have to do all of that shipping yourself and put like a note on, where you ship out to and stuff. So Vellichor, again, that's Vellichor. I can't modify the transcript on this episode, so it probably has it different from how I'm saying it. But yeah, they have digital issues currently, and that's what they do. But I have seen some other Kofi shops do physical items through them, is what I'm saying. So you'd probably have to do all of that shipping yourself if you ever did physical items with a Kofi shop. And yeah, there are other merch stores though that, have printables, right? And I'm sure you guys are aware of, like, I haven't done an episode on merch shops a bunch, but I do mention it in that guidebook I put together recently. So you can check it out if you want, the past episode. And yeah, so that's all I wanted to mention again on the Ko-fi shop real quick. And in regards to Dapple, right, the submission man system that Vellichor is using, and I just wanted to point out, so it has these required fields, right? So it says Instagram handle required. I think, not everyone may have an Instagram account, right? So maybe it should just be a general social media handle. And not everyone uses social media too. So that's something. I think maybe that should be more of an optional thing, right? For submissions, because not everyone uses social media unless the piece was going to be specifically shared or published strictly on Instagram, right? That's different. But yeah, this is going out to their Substack, and yeah, so I think one thing here, it's not also clear with what file types are accepted, you know um in terms of, like, is it Word doc or a .jpeg or things of that nature. So that's my only note here. That'd be nice to note that. Yeah, because I don't think it says what type of files that they accept, right? And yeah, so is it a Word doc or PDF's okay? What type of files are accepted, right? That's one thing. Is it all file types, or so with some submission management systems, absolutely you can restrict what file types you want to intake and which ones you don't. So yeah, and yeah, so that's all I wanted to mention, with here. And I think again, this could maybe be not added. It may not be necessary to put terms and conditions, or maybe just one section for submission guidelines. I think there might be a way to do that with Dapple. Yeah, but those are my only comments. The file types, and not necessarily, not everyone has Instagram or social media, right? So yeah, just wanted to mention those two things towards the end and tack that on. So that's pretty much it with Vellichor Lit Mag. Again, check it out. Again, that probably will have some upcoming issue calls, some contests, and their blog looks like it's always open, or Substack publication, series is always open, it looks like. And they do, nonfiction and visual art through it. So yeah, take care, guys, and I'm going to sign off now. I was signed into Kofi actually, so that's why you may see at the top. I don't know if you guys can see my page or anything linked in there, but I haven't really leveraged Kofi a bunch, but I've navigated through it a couple of times and have set up Kofi pages myself. Haven't leveraged the shop functionality a bunch, or even Patreon, but those are two great ways to do some fun things, if you're lit your journal, and to raise support around it, right? Not just through Buy Me a Coffee or Kofi, right? Patreon, several other platforms, even merch shops have some pretty cool back end membership things you can do, some of them out there. So yeah, take care, guys, and I hope this episode helped you. Yeah, bye. Yeah.